Hello everyone. Welcome to my lecture, The Voice of Philosophy, Doctrine on YouTube Philosophy Classroom. Today's lecture, Unit 17, Utilitarianism by John Stuart Mill. Chapter 1, Utilitarianism as Public Hedonism. A great deal of human worries are about the ethical behaviors. For example, to keep promise. Many intersubjective conflicts originate from ethical issues. The ethics implies conflicts between humans, that is, intersubjective problems, such as, how could you do that to me? The ethics deals therefore with interpersonal problems. One of the biggest matters which cause conflict or collision is the difference in values. Value breeds behavior. Man's actions are orientated from their view of the value. The study dealing with practical action is named practical philosophy or ethics. Aristotle, the father of learning, divided learning into three main parts. They are theoretical, practical, and creative science. Theoretical learning includes philosophy, metaphysics, physics, natural science, and mathematics. To the practical learning belongs the ethics. Creative learning or productive studies are studies of art such as poetry, rhetoric, etc. As the study of practice, ethics focuses on the inherent way of a human being, that is, a moral action. According to Aristotle, the purpose of the study of practice is not to become intellectual, but to become virtuous. The problem of human social behavior is closely related to ethical values. The theory then made an important contribution to the practical philosophy is utilitarianism, developed by Jeremy Bentham and J.S. Mill in England in the 19th centuries. The utilitarianism comes down to a formula, the greatest happiness of the greatest majority, which means that to pursue the greatest happiness of the greatest majority is right thing. It is ethical. Jeremy Bentham made a public pleasure into the principle of ethics, while his happiness basically refers to pleasure. In that sense, the utilitarianism is in line with the ancient ethical idea of hedonism. Among those who advocate hedonism is Epicurus. Hedonism is more of a general habit of human beings and a view of value rather than a particular school of philosophy. The phrase "seize the day" or "carpe diem," which appears in the movie The Society of Dead Poets, shows an aspect of hedonism. This means that you should enjoy the day as much as you can. Chapter 2, The Merit of Utilitarianism. The essential of utilitarianism is popular hedonism, as shown in its formula, the greatest happiness of the greatest number. It is better to pursue a large number of the pleasure than just to pursue one's own pleasure. On the basis of the public pleasure, the hedonism frees itself from the blame that is commonly imposed on hedonists, namely, hedonists are egoists. Until now, hedonists could not avoid the criticism that hedonism is a dissolute way of life, or that hedonism is the philosophy of the rich who love quality wine and sex girls. Under these circumstances, utilitarianism or popular hedonism advocated by Bentham has caused a new development in the history of hedonism. Utilitarianism has made up for many of the weaknesses of the conventional hedonism by considering not only one's own pleasure but also others' pleasure. Therefore, utilitarianism is widely applied to many social problems, economics, and public welfare theories up to the present today. Chapter 3, J.S. Mill's qualitative of utilitarianism. The objection against the Bentham's utilitarianism is as follows. First, utilitarianism is a valuable doctrine only for pigs. The reason is that a person has many other values besides pleasure. Therefore, utilitarianism is the idea of treating men like pigs. Second, What utilitarianism says that is the greatest pleasure of the greatest number is actually unattainable. There are people who has no happiness at all. Third, there is a criticism that utilitarianism makes people cold and uninspiring. Characters and motivations are important for the sensitive and the sympathetic action, but utilitarianism ignores these factors and only focuses on the consequences of action. The purpose of John Stuart Mill's book, Utilitarianism, was to defend utilitarianism by counterattacking criticism of Bentham's utilitarianism. In response to the first criticism that utilitarianism only shoots pigs, Mill points out that most people who have experienced both physical and intellectual pleasure tend to favor the latter greatly. And in opposition to Bentham's theory of homogeneity of the pleasure, Mill asserts the difference of pleasure. Therefore, he said, Mill's text, some kinds of pleasure are more desirable and more valuable than others. Quality is considered as well as quantity. He argues as follows. Intellectual pleasure, for example, pleasure of the friendship, art, reading, and the conversation is a higher and more desirable kind of pleasure than physical pleasure. We can see that rationality serves as a means of seeking pleasure and happiness. For example, physical exercise can be painful in the moment, but it will make one healthy and lead a happier life in the long run. It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. Better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. It's a very famous quote. J.S. Mill related instinctive pleasure with the intellect as the ancient great hedonist Epicurus did. The second criticism of utilitarianism was raised by some moralists, including Thomas Carlyle, the writer of the French Revolution. They said that happiness in any form cannot be a rational purpose of human life and action because it is unattainable. They said also that man can do without happiness. Men are said to have no right to be happy. These people are surely to be said the pessimists. They say that the virtuously noble man gives up all their private happiness for the sake of the public good. Against the doctrines, however, arises another class of objectors who say that happiness in any form cannot be a rational purpose of human life and action because, in the first place, it is unattainable, and they contemptuously ask, what light has thou to be happy? Mill's answer to those objections is as follows. Even if there is no happiness at all, the axiom of utility is still valid. Happiness may not be attainable in some persons and in cases. However, it is possible to reduce the pain or unhappiness. It is the other side of utilitarianism. Though, even in that case, something might still be said for the utilitarian theory, since utility includes not solely the pursuit of happiness, but the prevention or mitigation of unhappiness. Utility axiom and the duty moral. Against the third criticism, Mill admits the value of the moral rules or so-called duties. According to Mill, man did not calculate all the ethical problems, but in almost all the cases, he has only to obey duties, usual moral rules, because by Mill, originally the moral rules were established in order to promote the welfare of the social state. Therefore, all the moral duties are means to the utilitarian value of the greatest happiness. Moral duties and virtues are not final reference of human action. Moral duties or laws such as don't lie or don't kill are not in themselves valid, but they are means to the happiness of oneself and the society. The assertion seems to contradict the common sense which regards moral duties as in itself right. However, from the standpoint of the utilitarianism, moral demand cannot be accepted as it is usually taken. Morality or legal justice can be justified in terms of the utilitarian command. The utilitarian doctrine is that happiness is desirable and the only thing desirable as an end. All other things being only desirable as a means to that end. The moral rules which forbid mankind to hurt one another are more vital to human well-being than any maxims. Therefore, Mill thought that the moral passion and the sense of duty moral is compatible with the utilitarianism. Differently to say, motivationalism can be involved in the consequentialism. Duty moral is usually called motivationalism or deontology, while happiness moral is called consequentialism. But the limitation is to be set in the combination of duty moral and happiness moral. When a duty contradicts the utility principle, the former should submit to the latter. For example, duty orders not to lie, but there are many cases for us to have to lie for the sake of happiness also. Okay, that's the end of my lecture. Thank you very much for your attention and listening. See you next time.